Welcome everyone to the End of Life Planning webinar presented by TV Toastmasters. I'll be your master of ceremonies today. It's never too soon to start planning for the later stages of your life. And if you think about it for a second, as infants and toddlers, we learn to crawl and talk and walk, preparing for independence from our parents. We spend our school years educating ourselves to prepare for a career. Soon after starting that career, most of us begin to financially contribute to a pension or 401k plan to prepare for retirement. It's prepare for the future, and yet we hesitate to prepare for that very thing that's the most inevitable, the end of our life. So this morning, our two guest speakers will share expertise and experiences to help you understand why it's important to plan now for end of life, how to go about the process of planning, and where to find additional information. The entire program is about an hour long, with the second half devoted to a Q&A session with both of our speakers. We'll also sneak in a little shameless plug for our hosting organization, TV Toastmasters. Before I introduce our first speaker, let's take a minute to watch a short, lighthearted video about something called advanced directives.
Dear family and friends, and whom it may concern, I'm writing this poem to help you discern the actions to take and the things to refuse when some terrible day you are faced with the news that some sudden illness or stroke of bad luck has left me unconscious and helpless and stuck face up in an ER, laid out on a stretcher with chaos around, and you're under pressure to make some very quick, high-stakes decisions. I want you to feel you at least have a vision of what you can do, so you'll know in your soul that you've done what you could with what's in your control.
But what?
I choose my own plan for my own diagnosis. If my heart were about to give out and I knew it, I'd save you this trouble and write my way through it. I'd sit down with my doc and she'd sit down with me, and we'd write out the orders for all docs to see. It would be what is known in most states as a post form. In our Commonwealth, we call it a most form. We'd talk about tubes for food and hydration, for breathing and peeing and resuscitation. She'd find out when I'd want to be hospitalized, and without much ado, it would be finalized. After all of my preferences I have confided, and my doc has checked off all the things we decided to make clear what I do and I don't want provided, we'd print out both pages, one sheet, double-sided. We'd sign with a pen in blue or black ink, and the paper would be Astro Bright's Pulsar Pink.
Pajam!
Sorry, I'm on mute. Pulsar Pink, that's a new color for me. Fantastic. Our first speaker this morning is Barb Mackey-Zeigler. Barb is a certified case manager and registered nurse with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. She is passionate about health and wellness, including encouraging others to choose to plan with advanced directives. Her talk is entitled Advanced Directives, Choosing to Plan. Barb Mackey-Zeigler.
Well, good morning, everyone. Going to share my screen. Great. And again, good morning. My name's Barb Mackey-Zeigler, and I'll be talking with you today on choosing to plan advanced care planning. Just a show of hands, how many of you have completed your advanced directives? Yay. How many of you have the paperwork, just haven't had time to fill it out? And how many of you have no clue what I'm talking about? This is my first quote. And those of you that may not have seen the movie Forrest Gump, I do think the quote is timely. Mama always said dying was a part of life. I sure wish it wasn't. And don't we all feel that way? None of us want to acknowledge that death is part of life. And I don't know why that's so hard. I still remember as a young, inexperienced nurse sitting down with an older gentleman who, with tears in his eyes that poured down his face, told me his fears of death, dying, and what might lie ahead. I didn't know what to say. took his trembling hands in mine, and I told him the only thing I knew. We are all going to die during our lifetime. He looked me straight in the eyes, nodded, seemed to calm as his trembling in his hands lessened. As Jeff said, we prepare for many, many milestones, don't we? High school graduation, college, our career path, our first car, insurance, marriage, our first home or apartment, and even for our retirement. But how many of us have planned for our healthcare emergency or end of life? And those of us that raised our hand and have that plan in place, how many of us have had the hard conversations with our loved ones? I read a great book, not maybe a couple years ago, got it at the library. It's by Michael Hebb, and it's in the resources. It's called Let's Talk Death Over Dinner. And it's all about having conversations at the dinner table. And I think that we all can say we come together and share stories, especially when we're sharing meals or drinks with each other. And it's a great time to have that conversation when we're breaking bread with each other. Those of you that have not seen the Civil War movie Gone with the Wind, again, I do think this quote is relevant for this subject matter. I'll think about that tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. And I think we think about death that way. There'll always be tomorrow to consider. After this Zoom call, if you became incapacitated, do you have a plan in place? Have you had that hard conversation? And do you have someone that can make medical decisions for you if you can't? Simply put, advanced directives or advanced care planning are your written choices in the event of a healthcare emergency or at end of life. It's your plan and provides direction not only to the healthcare team, all of us working there for you, but to your family and friends. Your directive outlines what you want done when you can't make those decisions for yourself. Advanced care directives are legal state documents, which vary from state to state. For example, I live in Ohio, therefore, the advanced directives I complete are from the state of Ohio. If I move to Kentucky, just over the river, I need to resubmit or complete Kentucky advanced directives. Advanced directives are accepted in all 50 states and the District of Columbia, along with medical proxy or durable power of attorney for healthcare, your health advocate. Why is it important? Because we're all going to have a healthcare event. We cannot live without having some issues with our health, as well as our loved ones. And I believe that we all should be interested in planning for our healthcare emergency and end of life. My challenge to all of you is to consider to plan your health directive and also include your family. Get them on the bus. An up and coming advanced directive is video advanced directives. And I really think that this will become more popular as time goes on. And with COVID, we've advanced so much with technology. The only state in the United States that will accept a video advance directive is Maryland. And basically, it's stored on your phone. Isn't that great? Because all of us have a phone. Basically, your healthcare provider and your loved ones have a link to access and replay your wishes for life-sustaining measures for medical care. And again, I think this is an avenue we're going towards. New Jersey will accept the video advance directive, but you have to have the paperwork to accompany it. In the state of Ohio, the legal documents include the living will, durable power of attorney for medical care, organ donation, do not resuscitate and power of attorney. Living will outlines what you want done in the case you become incapacitated, such as, do I want to have dialysis? Do I want IV fluids? Do I want a breathing tube? Do I want a feeding tube to nourish me? You can make these decisions before your healthcare event on what you would like to outline to be done. And now that I'm thinking about it, I just want to share, you tell me if I'm talking too long. A recent study on the video advance directives, I can't remember where I read that, but I'll have to look that up for you. Basically, they had healthcare professionals look at paper advance directives and video advance directives. And what they found was healthcare professionals were more inclined to consider the patient on the video and how they conveyed what they wanted done rather than the paper advance directive. So they were more likely to follow through on what they saw on the video. So I found that very interesting. Durable power of attorney for medical care. If you do nothing else, I would encourage you to have a medical advocate. You can have more than one. You can have several. You can have your spouse, your sister, brother, as many people on there as you want. With the HIPAA laws, it's really important that you have someone on there that they can release information. If for instance, my daughter's in South Carolina and she's on the DPOA form in addition to other family members. But if I'm in the hospital and she calls and says, how's mom? And they see she's on that form, they don't just say she's here in the hospital. They're able to say her heart's beating, she's breathing on her own now. They're able to give her more information because she is a DPOA. In Ohio, you can also complete an organ donation form. You can even select which organs you'd like to donate, or you can, at the BMV, check that box, and at the time of your passing, the family can discuss what organs that you'd like to donate if you haven't outlined those. Do not resuscitate order is exactly that. It's a medical order by the doctor. It is written by the doctor. It's not something that you can write out and say, do not resuscitate. The doctor must sign that. And a power of attorney is financial. You can complete that with an attorney. Basically, it allows someone to make financial decisions for you in the event that you're not able to make those yourself. And again, you don't need just one person. For my mom and dad, my sister and I were both power of attorney and both durable power of attorney for medical care. Advance directives do not expire. They remain in place until you change it or revoke it. For example, my mother, who had dementia, had multiple ER admits, and I'd accompany her to the ER. I was her DPOA and medical advocate, as well as my sister, but I was the one that understood medicine. She would be screaming, "Don't listen to anything Barb says. She doesn't know anything. I don't want her on my floor." And it was always a struggle because she could revoke me at any time, and she did most ER admissions. And I wanted to take you to the site. I am going to click on it. This is a site that I recommend for my patients because all of my patients, I do have a discussion on advanced directives or end-of-life planning and give them this tool. I usually tell them to go to caringinfo.org, which is part of the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. Let me see if I can you see this coming up? Can everybody see that? Yes, okay. This is caringinfo.org, which is part, as you can see, the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. And if you've already have your advanced directives in place, but you have elderly parents, so much information on caregiving, whether it's elderly patients, it's your sister, brother, your daughter, family members. I wish I would have known more about the resources that were included, because they really would have helped me for my mom and dad. But you just scroll down here, and here it is, creating an advanced directive. You can always get your advanced directives with the attorney, but it costs money. That's why I mention this to my patients. You can go out, create your own, go over here to download and complete your state advanced directive. And just remember, you want to put your state, and here we'll put in Ohio. I'm hoping you can see this. And then you just download the PDF. And on there is the living will, the DPOA. I can't find it coming up. Oh, there it is. The DPOA, the organ donation is on there too, which is interesting because it lists all the organs. You can
Barb,
print.
we're at about 13 minutes, just FYI for you.
Okay, well, I'll move past this, but you can print these out. You can fill them out, and you cannot sign them unless you have two witnesses. Witnesses can't be like your employer. They can't be your medical advocate. So just be advised of that. Now I'm trying to get back, Jeff, to my PowerPoint. Oh, well, I may have to stop and reshare. I apologize for this glitch.
All good. No worries. We're enjoying it, and thank you for your time.
Well, and one thing I wanted to mention was I recently updated my will. My kids are older now, and while I was doing that with the attorney, I went ahead and did my advanced directives again, and it gave me time to reflect on end-of-life planning and why is it so hard to plan and have these conversations. And I don't know about you, but it's hard. It's hard. And three things I've learned over this period of time is I'm not going to live forever. I can, as well as you can, have help control over your healthcare decisions in the event that you become incapacitated. And I can decide who will be involved in my healthcare decisions. Quickly, if you fill out your paper advanced directives, just make sure that they're easily accessible, that you share them with your family so they have a copy. I kept my parents in my glove compartment. Now, maybe that's not the best place to keep it, but we were going to the ER so many times that I had it always. Don't count on the hospital to be able to pull it up quickly. They just don't, at least not in my experience, and I've been doing this a long time. And keep them safe. There are services that will scan them, but there's always a cost. So just be mindful of that. And again, I think digital and video is on the horizon. This is a quote from Ellen Goodman, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning writer who founded the Conversation Project, and I included that in the resources too. Great project. It offers a lot of tools for having conversations on end of life with family and friends. We talked about everything except one thing, how she wanted to live at the end of her life. And I think that's true of many families. And this is my family. This is me before COVID, when I was still dyeing my hair. My 2 daughters, at that time I had 4 grandchildren, now I have 6. And this quote is from Dr. Ira Byra, who is an American physician, author, and leader in end of life. I have an advance directive, not because I have a serious illness, but because I have a family. And I think that's key. In conclusion, what I want you to know is an advance directive doesn't mean do not treat. You're terminally ill does not mean any of that. We can all direct our health care with an advance directive. It provides opportunity for us to plan ahead. I challenge each and every one of you to complete your advance directive, to have that hard conversation with your loved ones, and to select a trusted individual or several that you want to make medical decisions for you in the event that you become incapacitated. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Barb, so much. I know I wrote down a few questions, but we're going to hold those until after Cindi speaks. But great, there was a lot of things I didn't know in there, the state by state, the fact that they never expire, the video that is currently in Maryland, and hopefully it will roll out to all 50 states eventually. So great information, Barb. Thanks so much. We're going to go right into our second speaker, and that is, she is Cindi Acree-Hamann. Cindi is a doctor of nursing practice and advanced practice registered nurse and a certified professional in healthcare quality. She also serves as an ombudsman associate with Pros Seniors. She'll talk about that during her talk. Her talk is entitled The Long Goodbye Marathon. Cindi Acree-Hamann.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for the kind introduction and thank you for your interest. My portion of this presentation is the Long Goodbye Marathon, when that end-of-life planning takes a detour due to brain health issues. My sister and I, it's a story of my sister and I, and we are marathoners, triathletes, whitewater rafting people, long distance cyclers. We do all kinds of different things. And we have had a huge detour for about the last 8 years. And I just wanted to share my experiences and what I've learned. As Jeff said, I have lots of credentials, and that doesn't matter. I'm a nurse. I care about health and safety in general, and I know what should be done that isn't, and what isn't done that should be. So needless to say, I have had the worst year of my life spending my career at the Cincinnati Children's Hospital, which is now #1, yay, and the shadow side of healthcare outside of the hospital in elder care. So I just want to just kind of go through our story and help you raise your awareness and educate and share some resources. And warning, 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 this whole process, may break your heart. Anytime you deal with yourself, your spouse, anyone in your family that has this brain, like a progressive brain illness, it's the long goodbye. So my training in death and dying, I did a lot of it in my practice as a nurse practitioner in the newborn intensive care unit with little babies and families. Very, very sad. Personally, I haven't had a whole lot. My father died in '74. He donated his body to science. My maternal grandmother, she died in '79 on her porch swing down in southeastern Kentucky, buried next to her husband, not very far from their home. My mother died in 1988. And because we have a tradition of going down to southeastern Kentucky, it's an Appalachian tradition to decorate graves of those that have gone before. We've always had the conversations. Barb talks about having it at the dinner table, that reference. Well, we would have them in the graveyards as we would, remember and reflect of those that have gone before us. So that was very traumatic, but having known exactly what she wanted, it, was not as painful as it could have been. And just a funny story, one of the things that she wanted was to have, back in those days, the little baby on board signs. She wanted to have a grandma on board sign on the back of her hearse. Well, my mother and her sister came up to Cincinnati from Jackson, Kentucky, down in Breathitt County. It's about 75 miles southeast of Lexington, to get jobs during the war. And so we had a service up in Cincinnati, and then we had a service down in Jackson, Kentucky. So when the Breathitt County Funeral Home fellows came to pick her up, they said, well, girls, we can put that sign in the back of our hearse, but we're going to have to take it off when we get into the county because we don't want anyone thinking we're not respectful of those that we're transporting. I'm like, okay, it's a deal. And then also she was a matchy person, and we had to make a special trip to her house to get her shoes to match her purse for her, casket showing. But that was many years ago. But it was not as painful because everything was planned and we knew exactly, what was going to be going on. And then my sister unexpectedly passed away in 2017. But once again, we knew she wanted to be cremated, everything had already been taken care of, all the paperwork and those types of things. So that's been my previous training. But currently I'm dealing with an 8-year-long training timeline. For those that do marathons, you do, 6-8 months, of training. This is like 8 years for this timeline for my dear sweet sister, who's only 74. Just a quick synopsis of her history. And I want you guys to be cognizant of, family members and others, people at church, different things, how this is very slow and insidious creeping up on people. That was just like unbelievable what was going on, because I had no experience in this type of, venue, and just, plodding through training, going day after day, year after year. So in 2015, she retired. She was a Cincinnati public school teacher and also worked at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And the slowing down in motion was a big sign. Then in 2019 spring, she had to be practically carried across the Flying Pig Marathon finish line. So I'm thinking, that's when the real marathon began, because I'm like, what is wrong with my sister? She's healthy. She doesn't smoke. She doesn't drink. She's one of God's girls. It's like, what could be? So I, is it anemia? Is it cancer? Is it thyroid? Couldn't really find anything. So in spring of 2019, she was a victim of scammers for $4,000 once. And because it was such a great deal, they had, such a great victim, they did it again. What they did, and I had this happen to my computer, they, came up on her computer and acted like they had her savings accounts. And they said they were going to wipe them out unless she gave them this money. That happened to me. And I'm like, oh, please. I don't have time for this. I turned it off, unplugged my router, got everything. I had like a 20-minute disturbance. But for her, and this is like one of those signs that the physicians tell me, that critical thinking and mental acuity is declining. And then also in the fall of 2020, she had issues, and she lives alone, has her house, and she's a widow, and normal pressure hydrocephalus. So she had to get a brain shunt that goes from the brain. And I asked the neurosurgeon, well, what causes this? Well, we don't know. And I'm like, it's never been in the family. So the quest continues to figure out, what's going on. So in spring of 22, I got the diagnosis finally of progressive supranuclear palsy, which is a cousin to Parkinson's disease. And there's a dementia umbrella of diseases, and this is just one of many that can affect the brains of our loved ones. The statistics are about 5.6 million Americans have some type of brain dementia issue, and 5.2 of them are over 65. So even before 65, this can happen. She also, continued to drive. She was put on medication, physical therapy, those types of things, and then continued to drive. But then she couldn't pass her driver's test. Well, it was because she had cataracts. So we went through surgery with that. And that's when, as Barb mentioned, medical power of attorney, advanced directives were drawn up. Then the real sad part comes in fall of 23. She is found, disoriented at a place where she volunteers and had to be driven home. And I was meditating the next day, and it was, got the message to take her in for an evaluation. So she had a urinary tract infection. And just an aside for women's health, as our estrogen levels drop, then our private parts get drier and it's easier to get urinary tract infections, and there can be things done for that. My sister had 2 in 3 months, and she hadn't had any in the rest of her life, previous life. And so I talked to one of her doctors on one of her visits, and we got cream, and then they also can do prophylactic antibiotics for these UTIs, because these UTIs will make people seem like they're absolutely crazy and off the wall. And if they can get treatment, it's a good thing, and it's not that bad. I did have one friend, relative, she had multiple sclerosis, and she had been having to do urinary catheterization. She had a UTI. She was acting so crazy. They treated her for depression, and she ended up dying of sepsis because the bacteria just kept, very, very sad. Anyway, so my sister, hospital, she went into rehab, back to the hospital, rehab, and then she was in 3 assisted living places, and she's on her 3rd one because the care is not good. There's neglect, there's incompetence, and people just don't really care. They want your money, but they don't really care. It seems like they don't care. But she's found romance at this 3rd place, and I'm trying to get a hold of her romantic interest's older brother, who's his sponsor, to see if we can move them together, because of course, when you get into assisted living and any type of care, it's cha-ching, lots of money. But when this all started, I got the estate, the financial durable power of attorney to take care of her house, her car, her retirement funds, those types of things, and protecting assets. And thank goodness, we had talked about things, because I knew, who her retirement fund manager was at Fifth Third. I knew who her tax attorney was for taxes and those types of things. So in marathoning, I don't know if any of you guys do any, fitness, walking, running. Short races, you'll have water or Gatorade. And then on longer races, you'll have what they call aid stations. So they're these big, red tents, and they have paramedics, EMTs, those types of things. And I just participated in the what's been aptly renamed the Floating Pig Marathon, the 25th running of the Flying Pig Marathon. It poured down the rain for the first 4 hours. And I was going by one of these aid stations, and they go, "Ma'am, do you need anything?" And I was just rocking with my tunes, just, pressing on. And I said, "Well, do you guys do any, psych mental health evals? Because I wonder why somebody like me would train for this, pay for this, and do this in such, unseasonable conditions." And they just laughed. But aid stations are very important in all the way in working with end-of-life planning, and also any of the brain challenges that people might come into. In Cincinnati, the experts that I found were at the University of Cincinnati Gardner Neuroscience Institute. These people are rock stars. And I'm sure in different cities, you've got good neurology people that work on motion, seizures, those types of things. But action steps to consider: be attentive to those first warning signs. My sister's was slowing down, falls, scams, memory lapses, confusion, getting lost, just calling in the middle of the night, after a Halloween party, "I'm lost." And "Well, where are you?" And we had to have the police in Terrace Park guide her back to where she was, where she was familiar, to get home. So I was just really worried about her safety and well-being. But with this urinary tract infection and going into institutions and facilities, and I've been able to keep her there where she's safe. But with medical providers, try to have a good relationship with them, query, have an agenda. As Barb mentioned, being a frequent flyer in the emergency rooms. Yes, I have done that with her as well. What's going on, why, what can be done, what does the future look like, have them help you understand. And then when things start getting to this level, that's when you need to work out details about finance, estate planning, all those types of things, just so that you can have those things, at the individual's ability to sign those things over, is much better when they first start their progression and decline versus later. There's a difference between competence to sign paperwork with physicians versus lawyers, but I was able to get everything done, and I was very excited. So as far as loved ones needing to be safe, you want them to be safe, but if not, what level of help do they need? In healthcare, we use activities of daily living, and that's just things everybody does, every day: dress, eat, fluids, medication, toileting, those types of things. When you're looking for help, this is what the coding looks like. You know, are they independent with no issues, or is it dependent where someone needs to do everything for them? And of course, there's dollar signs attached. And as you get more dependent, or your loved one gets more dependent, then it costs more money. Also, the stations of facilities, there's, hospitals, there's inpatient rehab, there's skilled nursing, independent living, assisted living, total care, and they even have locked dementia wards when the brain disease gets so bad that the person can't maintain their own safety and needs to be kept behind locked doors. So you have all kinds of different facilities, probably in all different cities, across the US. But for loved ones, you want to keep them in their home as long as possible and as long as it's safe. In our local Cincinnati area, there's a council on aging, and I think every state has a council on aging, but locally, there's resources for meals, transportation, well-being checks, and then choosing alternative living facilities. That's a definite, detour. Assisted to total care. It's ideal, I think, to get somebody in some place as long as it's a good, safe place with good care. To go through the whole gamut of they need a little help, and then they're going to stay there until their soul's contract on earth is done. But when you're looking for facilities, visit them, ask questions. When I was visiting different facilities for my sister, the one that she's in right now, they were the only one that had their residents out in the lobby and motoring around. There were so many I visited, you didn't even know anybody was there. And I'm like, holy guacamole, what are you doing with these people? It's like, get them out, keep them active, so that's where she is currently. And then also you can check with Pro Seniors, which I'll get to in just a minute. And they are a great asset for helping with choosing facilities and those types of things. And then financing in the facilities, that's an interesting detour. If there's no resources, some facilities will take Medicare and they'll take Social Security. They take all that money and give the resident maybe $50 to spend a month. There's other ones that will, other facilities that will do, it starts around $5,000 a month for assisted living, goes up to 13 to 20, it's like, it's a month. We're talking thousands and thousands of dollars for this type of care. But some of them will have the resident pay like apartment rent for 2 months or 2 years, I'm sorry. And then it'll switch over to the Medicare for the government to pay. And then there's some that will just keep drain the finances down until there is nothing and then kick them out. So it's need to be very careful when you're looking at these. And also, as you're working with attorneys, there's an ability with finances to cordon off some money in a trust so not everything is drained, because my sister wants to leave money to her college. She went to a private college up in Indiana, Taylor University. She wants to give money to church, city gospel mission, different things. And so, trying to keep everything, on the up and up with a lawyer. Of course, that costs more money as well. There's even, aid stations are very important. And one of the best is Pro Seniors. It's like a one-stop shop, and there's a Pro Seniors in every state. And they have information, full service, they have aid, they have lawyers on duty. The Ombudsman program, that's what I'm training to be as a volunteer to try to give back and help the cause. And we educate, empower, and advocate for our elders. And then the Ombudsman's programs, like volunteers if anyone is, interested in volunteering. But I was just on vacation with my family and my husband's family, and I'm always thinking safety. And I was looking at these lifeguards, and it's like, boy, these guys are on it. There was a shark, sighting, the last morning we were on the beach, and they've got the walkie-talkies, the, radios, the all-terrain vehicles, the say the surfboards that'll, help save people, all kinds of different things, and they keep everyone safe. Well, Pro Seniors is very analogous to that, where they will do all the help they can for you to, navigate your challenge. So this is our Pro Seniors website. There's one, for every state, and this is, what they're, advertising, but they have all kinds of resources, how they can help, legal, a lot of Medicare fraud. There's a lot of relatives and kids that steal their parents' money. And I mean, it's just unbelievable, the world that I have been in with this elder care. And then legal services. Also, they have resources, they have legal forms, toolkits, all kinds of, different things to help people. And then if you have any questions. So if you just even are inclined to start planning or, whatever, you can, contact them and they'd be more than happy to help you.
And Cindy, just real quick, just a time check. You're at about 18 minutes, just so you know.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I wish I had known about them sooner. I found out about Prone Seniors and the Ombudsman after I had contacted the Ohio, this is complaints for poor care, the Ohio Board of Nursing, the Ohio Department of Health, the Ohio Board of Pharmacy, the Ohio Attorney General. All these places we're deficiency free, come and see. And it's like, well, and so nothing has come from all of my complaints of poor care. And so it's like, well, what needs to happen in order for them to, actually get a deficiency? So that's why it's like, whatever you can do if you have loved ones in facilities, closed circuit camera, one of my friends has like a family community council that helps everyone, that kind of spies on everyone. So the staff knows that, when different family members there, that they're going to be, checking on everybody. So you just have to work out the best you can with, your situation that you're in. Also, other websites that I won't go through in deference to time, but these are just some that are, helpful. And then a great thing that I found was Governor DeWine was very interested in improving the quality and accountability of nursing homes. So he had listening sessions and he's got this whole strategic plan. This is very interesting, but his goal is for all Ohioans to live longer, healthier lives with dignity, autonomy, disparity, and equity are eliminated. And he wants Ohio to be the best place to age in the nation. We don't have any mountains or ocean. So if we're a best place to age, so be it. But it'll be interesting to see how that rolls out. And since we are Toastmasters, I just want to talk about, the words that create worlds. My teacher, David Cooperrider up at Case Western, apply appreciative inquiry, always looking for strengths in the positive. But the words that people use, try to keep them kind. I encourage you to try to challenge ageism. You have institutional ageism, which is like prejudice and discrimination for our elders. And you have interpersonal ageism. And then you also have personal ageism. For me, I'm 64 and a half. Well, so what? That in a couple bucks will buy you a cup of Starbucks. I'm active, going, it doesn't matter. I don't worry about it, but other people do. So elderhood, when we're in the, 60s on is a normal phase. We start with childhood, adulthood, and then elderhood. And then a lot of incontinence, not being able to control bowel and bladder happen as people get older. It's very interesting. It's like the flip side of my, newborns that I'm taking care of, with the elderly, but a lot of them have to wear Depends or different things. Don't call them diapers. Please, refer to them as pull-ups, use, positive language. Also, nutrition is very important. My sister's lost over 60 pounds and was very malnourished in the first hospital visit. And, the food plan, needs to be, positive and, ensure with, extra meat for meals. Physicians do have medications, of course they do, to stimulate appetite. So we've got her on that as well. And then, as was mentioned, these conversations are difficult, and I just want to give you some tips. Nonviolent communication, Dr. Rosenberg, he has these 4-part series of you have so this is this coming from you, and you have an observation, and then you have a feeling, and you have a need, and then you request. So you've observed, numerous falls. You're feeling concerned for your loved one. You need for them to be safe. You request, how about if we go and get you checked out in the ER or, go to your physician. And there's more gerontologists being trained right now since the whole baby boomers, born in 1946 to 1964, they're aging. And there's 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day. So it's like, it's, you know, this huge wave of people. 75% of our population has at least one chronic illness. I mean, it's just, you know, unbelievable, the health status of our US here. But this is a good book and a good way to do conversations. And then also for any clinicians, there's an app called Vital Talk. I would go from, in my newborn intensive care world, to celebrating a baby graduating from the NICU, newborn intensive care unit, and then, you know, 5 minutes later being called to a baby that's dying and talking with grieving parents. So this is an app that gives you all kinds of information. So where's the finish line? So this is my sister and I, the 2018 Flying Pig Marathon. And then this is her at her 74th birthday celebrating. So this is a mystery story. It's, you know, the narrative's been going along and we don't have an ending yet, but I keep my fingers crossed that we can do well. And I just want to leave you with a kind thought about working with elders and people with brain disease, to remain patient and give all your respect to these beloved seniors. They've earned their dignity throughout their lifetime. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Cindi. Fantastic. I saw the WTF. I was getting worried there, but it was where's the finish? Okay.
Right. We don't use bad words in Toastmasters.
No, that was,
But-
you know, it's tragic to hear the story about your sister. And I've
Right.
known you for many years, and I've known you've been struggling through this.
Yes. And
But
you're a
thank you.
marathoner as well. Yes.
But yes, thank you for sharing for the benefit of all of us. So
Yeah.
really appreciate it. Now, as promised, second half of our program is going to be Q&A, but first I want to take a moment to recognize the sponsor of the event, TV Toastmasters, and their president, Joy Harris. So Joy, can you tell us about the Toastmasters organization and your club specifically, and share some of those details with us?
Thank you, Jeff. I'm sharing my screen. Someone will tell me if you cannot see my screen. Okay, we're good. So today, why Toastmasters? Why Cincinnati TV Toastmasters? A little bit about us. Toastmasters clubs are made up of people. So we are people that present material and presentations and speeches that inform and entertain our members. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about the difference between excuses and reasons. According to the dictionary, an excuse is a pretense or something that can logically be overcome, and a reason is a fair and logical justification for not doing something. So you may have the excuse that I don't even know if I have the skills to make presentations or do speeches. But that's not a good excuse, because there is plenty of training. You get many opportunities to practice with just small icebreaker speeches and move on to a 5 to 7 minute presentation, and then do demonstrations and organize special events such as today. We also have an opportunity to learn how to evaluate other speakers. And because your speeches would be evaluated, you get evaluations and feedback on all of your presentations and speeches. So you have another excuse that says, I don't even know what topics I would use for presentations or speeches that would be interesting. Whoops. Okay, so there are many opportunities within Toastmasters to get certifications for proficiency. So as I said, you may have a 3-minute icebreaker, and all you really want to do is speak to informal groups, maybe speak up at the PTA association or your homeowners association meetings, or you may want paid speaking engagements, or you may have a vision of speaking on stage. So these are just some of the examples of the pathways and the training modules that Toastmasters takes you through. So it takes you through presentation mastery, and it teaches things such as dynamic leadership and effective coaching. But the pathways are designed for personal and professional growth. So there's pathways such as motivational strategies, persuasive influence, and engaging humor. And I really enjoy hearing people do the engaging humor, and I have not taken that one yet. So those are the excuses, but what is the reason? You may have a reason that says, I'm just not ready yet. So to give you some encouragement about the benefits, you can make new friends, and you will meet colleagues, and there are connections. And of course, we like to have some fun. So some of the benefits of the things you can accomplish is to build confidence, and it builds discipline, preparing your speech, practicing your speech, and delivering your speech. You may pick up skills to be a master of ceremony, just introducing speakers. You definitely will learn new skills, and you can even participate in Toastmaster contests. There's another feature of Toastmasters where there's mentorship. So your evaluations give you a lot of range of topics that you're evaluated on, but the clarity of content, the vocal variety, and the eye contact, just to name a few, are the things that your evaluators will let you know what are those things that you did well, and they may have some suggestions that would have made your presentation even more effective. So in Toastmasters, you can be a mentor to others, and you can get mentorship. As I said, Toastmasters is made up of people, and this is an example of a few of our leaders, all of whom are here today. And again, it is a club made up of people, and you can come to our club and take on leadership roles. There's many opportunities to be a leader. So I would like to leave you with the thought that leadership builds character, and it looks good on your resume. So I would like to thank our speakers today, because I really learned a lot and I enjoyed the presentations. And I would like to thank the team that came together, David Ash, Jeff Vaught, and Veronica Sanford, for putting this special event together, and remind you that we are Cincinnati TV Toastmasters. There's our website. We meet on the first Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. We meet on the third Saturday, which is next Saturday, and guests are always welcome. So I'd also like to introduce you to the team leader of this team that organized this special event and is going to coordinate the question and answer portion of the meeting. And I'd like to offer now you share the screen with Veronica Sanford. Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you. Jeff, how much time do we have for Q&A, please?
As much time as long as people are able to hang on. I know we're running a little over time, but if people were able to hang on for a few minutes, let's go with it and see what we can get done.
Cindi, could you please, and Barb, also put your contact, if you feel comfortable, put your contact information into the chat. I'd like to say, just because I do want to be respectful of people time, I will only use 10 minutes. And so I will address the questions that are in the chat. And then if you could address your questions specifically to Cindi and Barb, I would be grateful. So Hans had the question, are there notarization requirements or witness requirements or attorney requirements for any of these forms? Question would go to Barb.
Hi. Now, the law between states, between governing states, is different. In Ohio, there is no law, state law, that says or mandates that any of the advanced directives, including a POA, must be notarized. However, financial institutions prefer to see a POA notarized. You do have to have 2 witnesses. They cannot be your employer, your spouse. They can't be someone, your medical advocate. So state to state law varies on that question.
Thank you. Question from David. What happens if someone gets sick in a jurisdiction outside the state where their advance directive is in place?
Well, this is what I know to be true. I don't know that it's in writing, but most states will consider your advance directive, especially if you're like in the tri-state area and you come in for a procedure, they're more likely to take your wishes into consideration. However, again, state mandates are each vary state to state. So it's really up to the facility. But most facilities will honor that. A lot of parents visit their kids in a different state. I was just in South Carolina and I thought, what if, I was dog sitting these 2 giant ponies and I thought, what if something happens to me? Will anybody honor my wishes? And I really do think for the most part, as a healthcare professional, we do want to honor and facilitate what your wishes are, especially if the family can confirm it.
Veronica, we can't.
Sorry, I would mute. Thank you so much. Perfect. Yes, on your phone, you can have the emergency contact information, and then the emergency personnel can find that number to call, and that would be your family, and they would have the information, presumably. Thank you. Cindi, thank you so much. The next question is for you. I have a friend, and he is 77, and he's moved out of state, and he just let me know that he has a new fiance. And I've asked him, how long has he known her? And he said 6 weeks. And so I said, oh, you're moving fast. And I'm very, very happy for him because he's a widower, a recent widower. But I will say that said, my immediate concern was a scam. So my question is, do you have any advice, any short story, just in the interest of time, something that you can advise us?
Well, my sister and her new romance, Doug, he's a bachelor. She's 74, he's 75, and he's got Parkinson's. And he has asked to marry my sister twice, and she prayed about it. And God said, "Have your fun with snuggling and nuzzling and whatever, but don't marry him." So she's very much a God's girl, and so she's not going to marry him because she's heard from the ultimate source. But it's like trying to figure out what advocacy. I don't know if you could maybe do pro seniors and talk to someone. I agree. It's like it's all about the money. It's that all this senior care is all about the money. But when people try to take advantage of people and marry to get half of their assets or whatever, that's if it's true love, that's great. But I would hopefully see if you could get like some pro senior, somebody to help as an advocate to sort out the details, because your intuition is always what you need to follow. So if you think it's a scam, it's probably a scam.
Thank you. Well, luckily he has family. And so
Okay,
this
good.
time I don't have to get involved.
Okay.
They can worry.
But
I can
encourage
turn
them.
over my
Yeah, encourage them to contact their pro seniors in whatever state, and just work with someone, a case manager, or they have lawyers, all kinds of different people.
Yeah, thank you. Now, for your sister, when it comes to that one, would the fellow would his concerns about her end of life planning, etc., factor into her paperwork? Is that something that you've considered?
Well, that's why I was like, please, I'm thinking to myself, don't get married. I don't want to have to deal with somebody else, muddying the waters, basically. But my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Barb, but the spouse is the ultimate authority for their spouse. So if he's got Parkinson's, for goodness sake. So it's like, who knows what, but my understanding is once people are married, their spouse, can make decisions and those types of things. But Barb, if you want to chime in, if the legalities of spouses, because I would expect to do whatever I know what my husband wants, but we have advanced directives, but we've been married for a long time. But Barb, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the spouse or next of kin is certainly who the healthcare team will direct their questions to. However, if the spouse has been deemed with dementia or cognitive disorder, their advanced directive will indicate someone else to be included.
Thank you.
That's why I always say more than one.
Thank you. Thank you. Jeff, I know you had at least one question. Do you want to go ahead and ask your first?
I don't have anything. I have to go back through my notes again, actually. So no, you can feel free to go ahead.
Okay. Okay, great. Janet had a question. Could you please go over how someone can revoke a DPOA? And I'll leave it up to Cindi first.
Well, Barb is the expert because she deals in this.
Oh, there you go. Forgive me.
But no, that's okay. That's
Forgive
okay.
me.
I'm planning to keep my plan straight and no, influencers, involved.
Well, all you have to do is say you can verbally revoke it, as my mom did. And what happened in that instance was my sister was also DPOA, and it took a matter of time before she would say that she didn't want her involved either. And then the next of kin was only us. Therefore, the medical team had to come to us. It was a very uncomfortable situation to be revoked every admission and then turned to and said that because I'm the one, or my sister, that we had to make the medical decisions, even though she was revoking them. Once she came for, curiously enough, UTI. And whenever she had a UTI, she would cognitively not be able to be in her right mind. And I would often ask for a psych eval, because if she's not cognitively intact at that time, how can she revoke a decision that really would require mental alertness?
Thank you.
Verbally revoke.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Do you want to raise your hand or go into reactions and raise your hand or type in a question? I don't see any other questions. I do see both forgive me, Barb and Cindi both put their contact information. And yes, Joy has a question. Thank you.
I'm thinking of the Cincinnati hospitals. I had a situation with a family member who prepared advanced directives, we'll say 7 years ago, when they were in, we'll just say, the Mercy Health system. And then after 7 years, they went to the Tri-Health Hospital and they asked them if they had those documents, but they didn't bring them to that hospital. And they said, oh yes, I have them. They're logged in the Mercy Health system. And then this is a few years ago too, but the Tri-Health said, well, we can't access those. You're going to have to recomplete them, which is what the family did. They recompleted all those documents. And it wasn't a life-threatening at that, even the second hospitalization. They weren't, terminal. But I think in Barb's presentation toward the end, there were some places where you can log your directives that is like a vault where you keep them. Did I get that right?
Yes, there are companies that will scan them and you can access them from your phone. Absolutely. There are different ways to keep the documents. Like I said, I kept my parents in my glove compartment. I always made multiple copies. And another thing I talk about a lot is personal health record. You need to have that with you too, because otherwise, okay, this is what happens. You get in the ER, they ask you all these questions, then they move you to another room and they ask you the same questions. Or like 6 other doctors come in, and this is what I do. Oh, here you go. Check this out. Here's the personal health record. Outlines everything that's happened to my mom or dad, their pharmacy, their home health care agent. I recommend that for everyone. And then they keep asking those same questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Jeff, this is the last question that we have time for. Janet asked, what is type 3 diabetes? And then Jeff, once that's answered, if you wouldn't, as Toastmaster, close out the call. Be grateful. Thank you.
Type 3 diabetes is the term that the functional medicine people are using, and a lot of the allopathic Western medicine people are using to describe the dysfunction of the brain that's very similar to the dysfunction of the pancreas in secreting insulin. So your brain is not able to secrete the hormones and the different hormones, the dopamine. Like my sister's on a carbidopa levodopa to give her extra dopamine, and the brain can't do all of its usual functions. So they're calling it a type 3 diabetes. And in functional medicine, they're focusing on the inflammation piece, and it's that's a whole nother seminar, trying to prevent cognitive decline. But that's the term you might hear if you do any reading or whatever. It's type 3 diabetes because the brain is just shutting down, and cognitive function isn't available, critical thinking, those types of things, and they have very unique, strange behaviors.
Thank you.
Fantastic, thanks. Yeah, I thought it was a great event today. A lot of great information on a subject that is sometimes taboo, or a dark subject that we don't want to always talk about. I hope we were able to demystify the process of planning for end of life and persuade you that it's something worth doing sooner than later. And I also want to second, Joy already beat me to the punch, but just everyone who helped out today. Obviously, our 2 speakers, Barb and Cindi, both of them longtime Toastmasters. The president of TV Toastmasters, Joy Harris, also a longtime Toastmaster, and the moderator of the Q&A, Veronica Sanford, also a longtime Toastmasters. Our volunteers to help with the Zoom, Janet and David, and most of all, you guys that attended the webinar this morning. Again, if we don't have your contact information, actually, I know everybody that's here, we do have it, so don't worry about that. But thank you, and have a great rest of your day.